Welcome everyone to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara, and we are going to talk about Star Trek Picard, Season 2, Episode 2. It's called Penance. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. That's what, you know that scene at the end of Predator 2, without getting too spoilery, where you see all the skulls in the Predator ship? This episode of Picard basically has that scene.
Oh yeah. I don't know if it did anything for you, but it was good for me.
Well, I know, obviously I was like recognizing certain skulls. I was like, oh, that's a Ferengi skull, that's this skull. And obviously he mentions the Vulcan one as Sarek. But there was definitely a couple in the background. I went, oh, what are those? Because I didn't recognize them, and I'm sure they probably were making you think of things. But
oh yeah, I mean, right away they name Gul Dukat, who's the main antagonist of Deep Space Nine, and the Cardassian one with the spoon head, and General Bartok, who is like a Klingon in Deep Space Nine as well for most of the series.
A lot of references. I did notice the Cisco name drop. They mentioned Cisco at one point.
I got so excited. I thought there was just a flash of a second where I went, is Avery Brooks going to show up in this episode?
There was no way they wouldn't announce that in advance if he was going to show up.
I mean, there was so much Deep Space Nine talk before this even happened that I just went, I don't know, maybe it is a possibility.
Maybe they'll get him for season 3. Maybe he'll show up for season 3. But
that would be amazing.
Yeah, so I think this was a much better episode than the first one, and I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One, the first episode largely was like before the plot started. So
yeah, it's just a reintroduction of everyone.
Yeah, this episode actually felt like it had more purpose, because it was like, here's the plot we're actually doing and here's what's actually going on. Up until Q's little scene at the end of the first episode, largely most of it was kind of whatever. It didn't really matter that much in the grand scheme of things. But here we actually get to see the characters in the situation, which is effectively, if you think Back to the Future, you think of when Marty goes to the alternate 1985 in the second movie. His time's been changed, and then obviously he has to realize to go back to 1955 to fix things. That's this episode. They're in this totalitarian, horrible version of their present day, where Picard's this like war general who's helped conquer the galaxy, and they're murdering other races.
Yeah, with the Confederation. The
Confederation, yes. So that's kind of the world we're put into, and Q does mention that he's not going to make Picard figure this out on his own, and he doesn't explain what he means at first, but then of course we see the others start to wake up, and we realize, oh, they also remember who they are, and they're also shocked by the world that they're surrounded by. And over the course of the episode, they find each other, they come together and form a plan for what they're going to do. And we kind of knew from this season on Picard that it was going to be traveling back to effectively present day, 2024, to fix whatever changes, whatever Q has done to change the future.
Yeah, happens in Los Angeles, so maybe it was me. Maybe it's me in 2 years. Maybe I did something.
I don't know.
I'm not actually in Los Angeles, but I'm pretty close.
California, whatever. Close enough.
It's all Los Angeles once you get to the southern part, until you hit San Diego.
Yeah, San Diego's the weird one, because obviously when you say California, I think of two cities. I think of Los Angeles, I think of San Francisco. San Diego's this weird one I always forget exists.
It's like right at the border of Mexico.
I always forget it exists. But I believe in Babylon 5 lore, San Diego was the city that was nuked.
That's right.
In the early 21st century, if I remember right.
We don't need to talk about that.
Well, I tried to get in a reference when you mentioned Ducat, because there's a Ducat in Babylon 5 as well, but you talked right over me.
I don't mean we don't have to reference Babylon 5. I mean, we don't have to talk about nukes in California right now.
Oh, good point. Yes, I understand. Yes, I understand. So, yeah, this was mostly a fun episode, and I think it's because it kept things simple. It's not nothing original about it, but it's doing a typical sci-fi premise. It doesn't feel like it has the baggage that I think a lot of season 1 suffered from, with these like Romulan villains and things like that. This was a lot more just, no, there's like something changed in the past, we have to go fix it and fix this horrible future, and we've got a ragtag group of characters who have been thrown together again, and obviously it's
that's true.
It's them navigating all the people they interact with in this episode, who are all like evil dictator style characters, who are like Seven of Nine has a husband who's constantly like, "You're acting strange, honey," which is weird because she's the president of the planet.
He always calls her honey or love or something, and
it
does come off as weird.
Yeah, it was dear. I think he said a lot of the time. So yeah, so we get introduced to where each of them are now, and they actually, I was actually wondering if they were going to spend like 5 episodes before they went back in time. I thought, oh, maybe we'll spend like 3 or 4 episodes in this horrible present day for them trying to figure out how to get to the past, but they actually kind of mostly, I mean, they're not time traveled yet.
It seems like they're going to get there pretty quickly in the next one, though.
Yeah, it does seem like, certainly by the end of the next episode, I expect we'll be back in 2024. Would be my guess. But no, there's a lot of Easter eggs in there, but no, it keeps it simple. It has characters reacting to things around them, and I had fun.
Yeah, you're right. The plot of the first season is a lot different, and it sort of like kept introducing the plot like every episode. There was like, we still don't really know what's going on. We're still trying to like figure out what the plot is, and we didn't even get Girardi until like a couple episodes in, I think. So, but here it's very much, well, we know that something's gone wrong with the timeline because of something Q did, and we know that there's like one problem to solve throughout the whole season. So that's going to be, it's like an easier thing to follow. Like, okay, our characters are there, let's watch them figure it out, rather than try to figure out what the plot is over like 5 episodes or something, you know?
Yeah, there's a goal in mind, and it's a fun goal because we're going to have them interacting in present day and having them react to things, and they reference past examples. They reference how the Enterprise with Kirk went back in time, and I
did think it was odd. They're like, well, the thing is, the Enterprise had Spock, and they're like, well, we've got the Borg Queen, but they also have Seven. Like, Seven is, I've always thought of Seven as smart as Spock, at least in Voyager she seemed that way. Maybe she's not because she doesn't have her Borg implants.
Well, that's what I was going to say. She doesn't have any of the Borg parts in this world now.
I do love that when she like wakes up and she has like her own systems checklist. It was very like classic 7 of 9, going through okay, I can still make calculations, I can still smell, I can feel pain. This is real. Like, just like the little checklist she did to like center herself.
Yeah, so they're celebrating something called Eradication Day, which, aside from just being like the opposite of a unification style holiday, they also seem to use this as a day where they'll execute some opposition,
the last of some civilization that they've conquered.
So in this case, they've got the Borg Queen with no legs or arms, just in like a little floating pod, and they're all freaking out when they see her, of course, and it's a big deal. But the Borg Queen, not necessarily because Q's had anything to do with her remembering the original timeline, but more just because of the way the Borg work, is she actually is able to kind of like sense that something's changed and is able to understand on some level, which is interesting because obviously the Borg, before the one thing that's probably relevant about last episode before the snap of the fingers happened is that they were interested in the idea that the Borg in some level want to join the Federation, which is an interesting idea, but it does sort of give us this idea that, okay, they have to use the Borg Queen and trust her to some extent to assist them in going back in time. They're going to basically do what the Enterprise did back in the Voyage Home, to go back in time, but now they're going to use the Borg Queen instead of Spock to like do the brainy stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's okay, that's cool. It's an interesting having to trust them, but I think thematically for the season, what that does is that you have this idea, the debate that was introduced towards the end of the first episode of should the Borg be allowed in the Federation? Is it is the risk too much and all that? They are now, all of our main characters are now being forced to work with the Borg Queen and might on some level actually build up some level of trust or respect or empathy or just understanding. It's enough that debate in theory should be more interesting and have a lot more voices being conflicted about what they should, because all the voices that were like, no, we can't trust them, screw this, kill them all, those voices by the time we get to the end of the season should be doubting those words, and that's interesting.
Yeah, I Agree. Plus, she doesn't look like the Sentinel thing that we got in the first episode. She looks like classic Borg Queen.
Which they
she's
point
a
out,
lot less.
Yeah.
She's a lot less sexy, which is a weird thing to say, but like in First Contact, she's definitely very sexual towards not just Data, but like Picard as well. And this one, she seems different, which is fine. She's, there's a lot going on. She doesn't seem to be as aware as everybody else as what's happened to everybody. At least not at first, which also might mean that she wasn't actually the Borg Queen on board in episode 1. Like, it could have been somebody else. We didn't see their face. I mean, she could just have these flashes of these echoes of another reality because she has that Borg connection, but it wasn't actually her on board the ship. But I don't know. Maybe it's just, Q didn't take her. Maybe he just took the rest of them.
Yeah, my guess right now is that he didn't bring the Borg Queen, or I say bring, he didn't let the Borg Queen sort of retain who she was in the previous timeline. It's just that because of how she works and how the Borg work. I mean, I don't remember what she said, but 7 of 9 quickly explained it with the bit of mumbo jumbo.
Gosh, yeah, Echo. We know that the Borg are able to like time travel and stuff, so sure.
Yeah. What's funny is I didn't recognize the actress, but it is probably these days probably more known for she was on both Timeless and Runaways, although I would say the special place in my heart is that she played Tess on the Last of Us video game, but I didn't recognize it because obviously she's got the Borg Queen makeup on, there's no hair or anything, so I
mean, she looks good. I think it's a really good looking Borg, but just classic look.
In terms of trivia though, she was on an episode of Star Trek Enterprise.
Oh.
Yeah, she played Liana on an episode called Oasis.
Is she the blonde, curly-haired girl in that? I don't know if you could check.
I don't think.
I watch Enterprise a lot. I know it's not everyone's favorite. I don't know why I find Enterprise to be very rewatchable, so I watched a lot. Maybe because it's only 4 seasons, so it's less of a commitment. And I like the characters, although it's my least favorite captain.
Yeah, well, she was on an episode of Frasier, and of course, an episode of the spin-off of the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel. She was on an episode.
You had to go digging for something, huh?
Yeah, I don't remember. It's been a long time since I've watched Shiny Happy People, which is a season 5 episode. No, it's a season 4 episode. Sorry, if I remember right. Yeah, but there you go.
I'm looking up Liana.
You've got to know who she was previously.
Oh, she is blonde. Okay. I mean, I recognize her, but she wasn't the woman I was thinking of.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, yeah, I like this Borg Queen. I think she looks. I like the classic Borg look that we get with her. She looks very much like we remember from Voyager and from First Contact. Less sexualized, but that's probably on purpose. And I think it's cool. She has a strange connection to Jurati, who, by the way, I think is the MVP of this episode. I thought she was hilarious in this. Really entertaining.
Well, she has a lot of comic relief stuff because she calls 7 of 9 7 when obviously that's not her name in this world. And
yeah,
her husband's
improvised story, I thought was hilarious though.
That was all right. I mean, I don't really remember much of it.
Elnor had these little. He's kind of like the Drax of the show, so he has these his absolute candor.
Yeah, he's very blunt and he just says what he's thinking. Do you know what? If I have a critique, is that having a character on a Star Trek show who is just straight up slitting throats is a bit weird and out of place to me. He slits a dude's throat and you see it open up the wound and the blood starts pouring out, and I'm like, this is a Star Trek show.
And I know that's fascist.
No, I'm not really sympathetic either, but that's not the point though. Is that
it is? Yeah, okay, I see your point.
Star Trek characters, try, they set to stun as much as they can, and you got Elnor here slitting throats like it's nothing. He's Jason Voorhees.
Yeah, that's true. There's no knockout. Yeah, that would be.
And they even have a quip afterwards, because Raffi like sort of watches him beat up these like guards after he's been pretending to be a prisoner, because obviously they all hate him because he's a Romulan, and he just kind of shrugs it off at the end, like, lol, yeah, I'm good at this, lol. And it's like, yeah, all right, you just murdered like 4 dudes, but all right.
Well, they all took turns punching and kicking him, so.
I'm just saying, it's very, I mean, I would not even think twice in a show where the characters do this regularly, because they're like agents or something, so they're always getting into like life or death situations, but on Trek shows, typically they avoid killing as much as they can, so. You do have the dramatic irony, of course, of Picard having to help rescue the Borg Queen from being executed. And we get a very, V for Vendetta style, like, Colosseum, everyone's watching, and there's the big red symbols and stuff. Like, obviously, like, I think there's a fine line to walk here, because you want to do totalitarian, you want to do, there's a little bit of an SS thing going on with some of the security forces and stuff, but you also don't want to make it feel like it's just doing the Mirror World version of, like, Trek. It has to be, like, kind of like that, but different, because it's an altered timeline of regular Trek. So it's a fine line to walk.
Yeah, it's I mean, honestly, they brought it up in the episode, but I thought they're like, oh, they're doing the mirror universe, because all Trek series have a mirror universe episode, with the exception of The Next Generation. They never did it. I mean, they did it in a comic series fairly recently, actually, but I think for the 25th anniversary of The Next Generation, they came out with that. But very quickly, we find out it's not the mirror universe. It's not a parallel universe. It's just a change in the timeline, like you mentioned earlier. But immediately that's what I was thinking. I'm like, I am really excited about the idea of this being a mirror universe, but we've been so inundated with it that I am also kind of relieved that
Discovery
it isn't.
just did it recently. I mean, I know it's a couple of seasons ago now, but like it was all of season 1 of Discovery.
Well, at least half of it, yeah.
And at least parts of like season 2 and 3, because we still did the Georgiou stuff and what. So the mirror universe has been such a feature on that show for the first like 3 seasons of it that, like, it's fine. We can leave it for a while. I mean, I never considered it as a mirror universe, but I think that's just because I knew they were going to go back in time to try and fix something, so I just always knew that it wasn't. So
yeah, you're right.
So that's not on the show necessarily. It's just I knew from trailers. I
didn't watch the coming up on Picard series. I mean, I did watch the trailer, and I knew we were going to go back in time, and it was somewhat around present day, but I didn't really know until you explained it last week.
I didn't intend to. I didn't even know it was going to play. It just I started playing, and I was like, oh, the remote's far away. I guess I'm watching this.
I didn't watch anything for this one either. I don't know if they came up with next time on.
No, I think it's just that episode 1 thing where they say, here's the season sort of like sizzle reel, and the only time they did it elsewhere is when Discovery was going on a break for a month. They had like a little sizzle reel for the second part of the season to sort of like, hey, come back in a month, you want to see all this shenanigans. So there's that. So yeah, to talk about just some of the stuff that actually happens in the episode beyond just the broad strokes. Picard, of course, in his like chateau, he's got slaves. He's got Romulan slaves, which is obviously again just pointing out the evil differences of this world. He's this like feared like conqueror who's done stuff for them. I mean, they don't call it the Empire. Obviously, it's just a Confederation, but that's what it feels like. It feels like he's this prize guy because of this, and he is horrified when he sees all the skulls. And especially when he hears who the skulls are, because I've seen the episodes where Sarek passes away in Next Gen, like that ending with Jean-Luc is quite good. So,
or even when he has to like take his Katra so that he can do the diplomatic mission, and the weight of all that emotion on Picard, and he does that obviously that huge performance from Patrick Stewart in that episode, like he has his very personal connection to Sarek.
Yeah, so that one has an emotional impact, and then you.
I like seeing the Borg one though with the implant on its eye.
That was cool. It was
just a cool skull. Like I kind of want one.
Elnor ends up. He's in Japan, I think, and he's actually with like freedom fighters, like a rebellion who are like targeting buildings and stuff to fight against the Confederation. But of course, much like Picard, he just kind of like was like, wait, where am I? What's going on? Why is there explosions? He's really confused.
The girl he's with just blows up.
Luckily, Raffi's like the person hunting, like she's in charge of the squad that's hunting everyone, so she's obviously able to bail him out like immediately, and then it's just like, oh, don't kill this one, I need him alive, and they try to get more information. 7 of 9 wakes up, she's the president, as we said. She's meant to make a speech at this thing. She tries to figure out anything about this world, like because she says the wrong thing. She says the Federation at one point. She figures out that Rios is a pilot in the fleet, so she tries to contact him, and it's worth mentioning, when she does that, she doesn't know that anyone else is going to have their memories or know where they are. It's every possibility that she could have called Rios, and Rios be like, yes, President, I am a loyal soldier of the Confederation.
Yeah, she's the first one we see after Picard, wake up and try to figure her surroundings, her situation, who she is in this world, what is this world.
And her shock at not being Borg or part Borg is very heavy in her opening scenes, and I think that's actually intentional, that we're getting a lot more for, because last season she was like a guest who showed up halfway through and then she came back a little bit towards the end. I feel like this season, because we're dealing with Borg as a topic, as the main topic,
Borg Queen too, who is a huge part of Voyager.
I think that she is becoming more of an essential character because she's core to the themes and the questions that this season is posing. And that's why we're spending more time with her, and we're seeing her reaction to this world. We're seeing her reaction to the Borg Queen, and her, like, because I got a little chuckle actually when she describes like how the Borg work, and this is why she's remembering things, or this is why she knows something, and the husband's like standing there like, what? How'd you know that, dear?
So I've heard.
Seems to know a lot about these Borg.
I would have loved if her husband was like Chakotay or Ensign Harry Kim or something from Voyager. Just a little, little Easter egg, a little nugget there, because she does have, in Voyager, she's. I don't think she's ever come out as like a bisexual or anything, and even her sexuality in Voyager isn't really explored that much. But obviously, men are very attracted to her because she's Jerry Ryan in a cat suit, thanks to Rick Berman, the awful producer who made her wear all those things. And so it would have been nice that this Totalian universe not only made her like marry somebody awful, but also it was like someone from Voyager, someone from the Rick Berman verse.
Maybe they had that idea. Maybe they didn't want to do it because they've got other plans for this guy and it just didn't fit, or maybe none of the actors wanted to come back. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of reasons why they may not have done that. I don't know.
A lot of the Voyager crew cast, kind of left the show unhappy because, really, once 7 of 9 shows up in like season 4, it sort of becomes the 7 of 9 show, and a lot of really good characters take a back seat for the rest of the series, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I've heard that the 7 of 9 show is the better part of the show overall, though.
She is absolutely like the best character on the show. I mean, maybe arguably the Doctor's up there too, but they also have a lot of episodes together.
So, yeah, we got that going. So Rios is like, coming back. Yeah, because he's at war with Vulcan, basically. He's out there with the fleet attacking Vulcan. And he comes back, and
I did like the woman he was talking to, who's also like part of this fleet attacking Vulcan. She's like, you know what you always say about Vulcans? They'll meld your mind and scramble your balls. I don't know. That line really made me laugh.
Do you know,
it was a funny episode.
Given you brought up balls there, it reminded me of a scene at the start. Trust me, this makes sense. Because Picard swore. He said bullshit. And I actually thought it felt justifiable, because I complained in season 1 about how there was like random F-bombs and stuff that just felt really tacked on and forced.
Sheer effing hubris.
Yeah. Honestly, though, Picard turning around to Q and saying, I've had enough of your bullshit, actually feels natural to me.
Yeah, you know why? Because John Delancey is right back in the role. Like, he knows how to play Q. Like, there's nothing about this role that makes me go, that's just John Delancey, cosplaying as Q, you know?
It's not even just that, though. I think, had they been allowed to, I think if Picard turned around and said that in the middle of Next Gen, once Q had 3 or 4 episodes, it wouldn't have felt out of place for Picard to lose his shit and go,
He's a frustrating character.
Bullshit. Like it worked. It made sense. It didn't feel forced to me. So
yeah.
It's you.
And we
saying,
should probably mention. Go ahead.
You saying her saying something about balls, like her saying that about balls.
It was a funny line.
Of swearing.
The we should probably mention though that Picard has noticed that there is something wrong with Q.
Oh yeah, right before the end of the scene, yeah, he notices that something. It's like either Q's sick or there's something not right, like something's wrong.
Yeah, which may lead to why we haven't seen the Q in 600 years in Discovery.
Oh yeah, they may tie that in. That makes sense. I mean, the core mechanic of the episode though, once all this happens, because this takes up like a half to 2/3 of the episode, all the stuff we've been talking about, and then it's like, okay, we have to do this time travel thing, but obviously this like version of this world, like they've got like shields and like force fields and barriers on it, like you can't just beam up and down willy-nilly.
Yeah, I also like, I mean, I like the look of it visually with like the big shielding around it with all the hexagons, but also Earth looks so nasty, like and the way Q describes it is that this universe, or like the universe that they came from, they saw that the planet was dying, and so they took measures to prevent that, to stop whatever was hurting the planet. But this one is just keeping the planet on life support and is still destroying it. So yeah, I like the visuals of it. It looked good. It was anyway. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, just to clarify, it's not a different universe, different timeline.
Yeah, you know what I mean though.
Yeah, timeline. I'm just because someone in the comments is going to be like, it's a different universe, it's timeline.
Well, we already established that's what it was, but yes.
So the core mechanic of the episode is basically them trying to like figure out how to like shut down the defenses long enough that they can beam up to the ship, and that's kind of what it's like this Picard on stage stalling as he's making his speech, as he's supposed to be executing the Borg Queen. Him and 7 are trying to stall, and they eventually have a bit of a standoff before they eventually get beamed up. And this is what Raffi and Elnor are doing. They're trying to like break out of the systems, but ultimately by the end of the episode, they all go up. They do get stopped from fleeing though completely, and the president's husband and a couple of guards beam aboard, and their cliffhanger is them sort of holding them at gunpoint.
They shoot Elnor. That's right, yeah. Who looks like he's in a lot of pain.
Yeah, so that's your cliffhanger. That's where the episode ends. Better episode, because I felt like episode 1, well, it introduced some really interesting questions about the Borg. Like that one key question, if the Borg wants to join the Federation, should we consider letting them do it? That is fascinating. It's a good idea. Everything else in that episode, though, was just like weird romance with Picard and Irish lady. It was like weird awkward scene with Guinan that just felt kind of sad. Here's what all these other characters are, just kind of in these random places, and like you honestly like other than the Borg thing that was introduced, I think you could have just met all of the other characters in this episode and it would have been fine. It'd have worked. We didn't need to see the fact that Rios was a captain on a ship before this episode. It didn't matter.
Well, we're going to see what happens like later on. Like clearly Picard's mother's, that storyline is going to affect this season somehow too. And there's still the overarching, like, why has he not had a committed relationship with women throughout his life? That's a thing that they're going to explore in this as well. So that was set up a lot in the first episode.
It was. I'm not looking forward to it though, so I'm hoping it's not that much of a big part, but we'll see.
Well, I mean, I'm interested. I think the first episode really set up some interesting, series questions. Mostly, with the Borg stuff, but also with I'm curious, like how they were going to proceed, like how this will tie in. It is always interesting to see like this, like the old man version of a character that you know so well, and then like reflecting on their life in the twilight years. Yeah, I do think that can be very emotional and perspective that I don't know, Respect your elders is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. You mean it's like I wasn't respecting elders in my critique? It was more just a concern about how they'll handle it in the writing, because I'm not convinced that they will handle that part of the drama correctly. Whereas, typically speaking, the show has been at its best, and it was a really shaky first season, but it was typically at its best when it had a really simple thing to have some action around. Not that I think of Trek as an action show primarily, which is a shame in and of itself, but that tended to be when it was at its best. And I think the reason why this episode is honestly pretty solidly entertaining, with very few faults that I'm actually going to levy at it. I mean, minor nitpick is when they beam in to the ship towards the... is it the ship towards the end? Or is it the lab? Whatever one it was. But, like, the camera did this thing where it kind of, like it did, like, a sort of a corkscrew, like, track-in to the characters as they beamed in, and I thought it was a bit over the top. Like I say, minor nitpick, but it annoyed me. It was just over the top.
I mean, I don't remember, but I'm sure it happened. I don't remember it, though. But, like, it's not... This season of Discovery and these first 2 episodes of Picard haven't had too much, like, camera flare work. So, actually, I think it's been toned down a lot. And to the point where I guess I didn't even notice. I disagree on Discovery. I heavily disagree on that, but that's neither here nor there. Discovery is so much better than it has been when it comes to the camera, like Dutch angles and spinny things and stuff like that. I mean, they're still there, but they're not like the way they were, especially in like season 2.
Maybe. I don't remember season 2 enough, but I've still been noticing it enough to be annoyed this season, so I agree to disagree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, but no, the reason why I'm bringing that up, though, it was meant to be a quick point, but you had to defend it, as you always do.
That's why I'm here.
But the reason why I brought it up is the point I'm making is that I'm having to kind of look for nitpicky things for the most part to critique this episode, because I didn't necessarily think it did anything wrong. Typically, it was more of an ensemble. I actually really appreciated that it left Picard for a long time and just focused on all the other characters. Mm-hmm. I think the episode benefited from that. And it's not that I don't like Picard or anything, but...
I like all these characters, though.
In his role, he is... Or in a lead role, it's kind of difficult for him to anchor a whole show at this point, because he does maybe serve better as a supporting character. And I know it's weird to say that because the show's called Picard, but ultimately, I think he fits it better as part of an ensemble now, as opposed to the lead character. And it doesn't matter that it's called Picard, not really. Like, that's what it's called because it's the one that's got Picard back. It doesn't necessarily have to be him as the central character all the time. And I think it's spreading the load amongst the rest of the characters. Like I said, it really felt like 7 of 9 was kind of the main character for a lot of this episode. Mm-hmm. And then having that sort of spin out into Jurati, into Raffi, into Rios and all the others, I think that was to its benefit. And it kept it feeling fresh throughout the episode. I was really worried there was going to be a lot of Picard wandering around the chateau, like really contemplating everything he's like discovered. But I was glad he didn't, though, because the next time we saw him, it was when he showed up, in front of the building, and he sort of stepped in when they were beating up Elnor. Mm-hmm. And he gave like a harsh order, to sound like he was a badass. I thought the flow of the episode benefited heavily from that, mm-hmm. Which is good, and it made me kind of like the rest. And I do kind of think it's funny that, like, we did have to hand wave some stuff, but we can just enjoy Jurati for who she is now, because I remember season 1 making it so hard to like care or give a shit because they were doing all these weird twists with her, like, oh, she murdered their boyfriend or some shit, and like whatever, and they just hand waved it away, some alien influence in her head. Just forget it, just enjoy the character now.
Yeah,
it's funny to me because they sort of introduced her as like, oh, she's the quirky kind of comic relief smart person, and that's who she is, because Alison Pill's good at playing that character. But then they wanted to twist us in season 1 by doing all these different things with her, and I love that they sort of realised that was probably a mistake. So season 2, forget that. She's just the character we wanted her to be in the first place.
She seems to have a bit of a dark side in this, though, and especially the moment she has with the Boar Queen, because when we first see Jurati in this like new timeline, she has like this computer animated cat partner friend, which is voiced by Patton Oswalt, and his name is like Spot 73 or something. So, clearly because of Data's cat. But so, and she jokes like even in this timeline, like I have to have some sort of unreal companion because I'm still lonely. And like the Borg Queen, the big thing about the Borg and like what makes them so tempting, and when you watch Voyager, you get more of this with Seven's character, is that when you are no longer part of the Borg, you get this overwhelming sense of loneliness because you were part of a collective. You just had all those companions automatically, this family unit, that you're deprived of all of a sudden. So it is very depressing to no longer be a part of the collective. And it seems like they're playing that up with Jurati's character, how she is lonely, or she's always sabotaging relationships, or she's always like by herself. And the Borg Queen seems to be able to identify that in her, and maybe it will be the target of her like seduction for trying to lure her into becoming a drone.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd describe that as a dark side per se, but yeah, I agree with everything else you just said.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the darkness can be described as not evil, but like, not being happy. Depression even.
Okay. Stretching it a little bit, but okay.
Like, well, maybe she would, willingly become a drone.
Oh yeah, maybe they'll go down that path. Like she has a flaw that might be corrupted or used against her. Or...
Yeah, I mean drones. I mean, they're always called drones because that's how we tend to see the Borg. But there are special Borg, like we saw Locutus, like he was given a name, not just a number.
Admittedly, I'm perhaps giving the show too much credit here. I would say that it could be as literal as you're saying it, or it could just be a thematic thing that we're exploring the ideas of loneliness, and we're exploring these ideas because it relates to the Borg, and that'll be why she sympathizes with some Borg down the line. Or even if it's not a personal thing where she actually does anything based on this comparison, it's more just for us to make the comparison ourselves, because we're talking about characters being lonely, and we're talking about characters being part of a whole, and we can sort of relate that between the two themes. Admittedly, this is the sort of show based on the writing of season 1 that'll just literally do it because it doesn't know how to do subtext. But that's not to say that like they won't know. Like they might just do the subtext, and I will be impressed if they just do the subtext. I will actually prefer that than them outright just having Jurati like become like part Borg or something. But not that I'd even hate if she does become part Borg. I'm just saying that what we're talking about here, what they've introduced and like are talking about her as a character in relation to how the Borg feel and how they can feel, that is an interesting thematic connection between two separate parts of the show, and that's something that sometimes I have struggled with in modern Trek to find.
Well, I mean, I think that makes this season pretty exciting. Like they've. I know you weren't as hot on the first episode, but I thought the first episode was pretty exciting and really interesting and engaging, and it got me like right away. And I think episode 2 was a terrific follow-up, even better than the first episode. So I think overall, based on these first 2 episodes, like I definitely think season 2 is going to be better than season 1, and I liked season 1. I didn't love it, but I liked it.
I mean, I think it's probably going to be better than season 1, but I mean, the bar is like very low, so I mean. Well,
I think these first 2 episodes are very exciting, so I'm really looking forward to this season so far.
I think episode 2 is a lot more promising than episode 1, so I'm feeling fairly optimistic at this point.
This Watcher in Los Angeles, do we think it's Guinan? Because we know her bar is in Los Angeles, and she lives like 700 years or something.
Well, see what we're talking about.
So yeah, they have to find.
Don't just drop that like everyone knows.
Well, I thought we sort of talked about like when we first started that.
We never mentioned the Watcher. We never mentioned there was someone for them to find in present day.
There is somebody called the Watcher, yeah, and there are multiple Watchers, but in present day Los Angeles or 2024 Los Angeles, there's someone who is the kicker for this event or whatever. That changes history, so that they have to find.
That's not what they said. They said they will know something about it. They never said they were the one who actually caused the change.
Okay, well, the change happened in this time, in this place.
The change happens in Los Angeles 2024, and the Watcher is someone they can find who will be able to help.
See, this is why you should never ask me to like explain the story.
I only asked you to do it because you referenced it, so you have to explain it. So
Yeah,
there's
but then that's your
context for what you say. Then say, Peter, tell him about the Watcher, and then I'll explain what it is, and then you can make your point.
Every time you ask me to explain plot, you always end up having to redo it anyway. So just stop asking me.
Well, I asked you because I feel like it's rude if I then just go, "Oh, shut up for a bit." Well, I explain what you've just said. So I say
saying
no.
it like that would definitely be rude.
So my alternative is to say, Tara, explain what you're talking about for the audience, and then you make a dog's dinner of it, and then I have to do clean up.
Anyway, we know Guinan's there, or at least she could be there because her bar is in their current timeline is in Los Angeles.
Yeah, but she's traveled around all this. I mean, she was on the Enterprise for years.
I mean, it might not be her. Yeah. And they would have to DH her then because there's no reason that she would be old.
Exactly. So I don't think it's that. I think
they could recast someone who just looks like a young, Whoopi Goldberg.
I don't think it's Guinan. Although it would make sense that they made a point of introducing her in episode 1 to then use her again in some way. So I understand that there's a logical reason to think it would be Guinan. I think it'll be someone that we do recognise in some way, but I wonder if they're going to do the ancestor of someone looks, so they can use an older actor because it's someone's great grandfather, but they're older. So
well, we know Brent Spiner's in this. There is a soon. And that gene is very, very strong. So yeah,
so maybe it's like senior son.
The great grandfather soon. Yeah.
or anyone else you could pick. Like who else is kicking around still?
Wesley Crusher. Justice for Wesley Crusher.
No justice, only vengeance.
Come on. Did you watch that movie? There's an arc.
I did watch it. It's a great arc. I was just cracking a joke. Okay.
All right.
The joke is I'm cold towards Wesley, right?
Yeah, so you're too hard on Wesley Crusher.
Well,
but a lot of people are.
I like having a character that I can act like. In like Parks and Rec, the way they all talk about Jerry, like he's the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like having someone to crack jokes like that about. So Wes is a character I do that with. A real person I do that with is Connor, but a character I do that with is Wesley Crusher.
Well, I'm excited to see what happens next.
Thank you very much, of course, for watching or listening. You can, of course, like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications. Let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. You can support the show financially over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month and keep all the content coming. So go and have a look and see if you want to do that. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?